Hi, I'm Mr. Simons, and in this video we're going to have a brief chat about Australia's household savings ratio. I think this is a very important economic statistic, one that is relatively easy to grasp and then explain, that is very useful in talking about the state of a particular economy, because savings ratios say so much about the level of economic growth and the level of consumer confidence. It's a really good measure to explain the underlying trends in an economy. So let's start with what is the household savings ratio. So basically, if we go back to the income identity, we can see that Y equals C plus S plus T. So that consumers have their income, which is Y, they can spend it, which is consumption, they can save it, which is S, and they have to pay tax, which is T. So if we just leave tax out for a second, what we're saying is that in terms of consumers' income, they can save or spend. The more they save, the less they can spend. The more they spend, the less they can save. And that if we look at the household savings ratio, what we're essentially looking at is, of that household income, what percentage is saved. And that if you think about people overall, that the more confident someone is, the more likely they are to spend money, because they kind of think that, well, these good times are going to continue. I'm pretty optimistic about the future. So if I want something, I should buy it because more money is going to come in later, that the economy is looking pretty good. But the flip side is also true, that the more pessimistic consumers are, the more likely they are to hold on to their money, to not spend it, and to save it. Because they are worried about the future. They're not sure where their next paycheck will come from. They're not sure what their ability to earn an income will be like in the future. So if you're worried about things, it's unlikely you're going to run out and make large purchases, because you're just not sure that you will have that income in the future. Now, if you look at COVID and household savings ratios, that if you go back to March 2020, so really before the worst of the first wave COVID outbreak in Australia, that Australia's household savings ratio was 7.9%, right? So around 8% of households' income was being saved. If you go then 3 months later to June 2020, and Australia's household savings ratio was 22%. That's a huge jump. So essentially then, $1 in every 5 in the household's income was being saved because they were quite worried about the future. And you can think about it that a number of people were losing their jobs, so they're going to hang on to their income, whatever income they have. As circumstances got better, that the savings ratio declined, and that as of June 2021, Australia's household savings ratio was 9.7%. That over a year, Australia's household savings ratio halved as consumers got more confident and started spending again. Now, it's important to note that these figures do not take into account the most recent Delta outbreak lockdowns across Australia, and that it's quite possible that over that 3-month period, that the savings ratio might jump again. But we can only use the statistics we have, and that I think that if you have this as a resource, as a statistic, as a fact that you can include in your discussions, that this will be really helpful in explaining how COVID affected the Australian economy, but also the relationship between savings and consumer confidence, that when consumers are less confident, more worried about the future, they're going to hang on to their money, maybe even put it under their mattresses, and they are not going to be spending it. And that the more saving in an economy, the more leakages, the less economic growth. That that's something that could occur as consumers take money out of the economy and put it away and are not spending it. Now that argument is a little bit complicated in the sense that if you save it, maybe someone else is going to use that to spend it and all those sorts of things, and I understand that. But for a high school eco level, if we're just thinking that the more consumers save, the less they are willing to spend, the less that kind of driver of economic growth of consumption is at play. Anyway, hopefully this was useful. The links to all of the things that I've mentioned will be in the show notes. And as always, thank you very much for watching.